You have to go inside and you find something that makes you happy. Whatever it is, just let it out. Moving to greater than 6 miles on Friday morning. Stars shining bright above me. I seem to whisper. Sycamore tree, dream a little dreamer. I breathe to seem to whisper. You have to go inside and you find something that makes you happy. Whatever it is, just let it out. Moving to greater than 6 miles on Friday morning. Stars shining bright above me. I breathe to seem to whisper. Sycamore tree, dream a little dreamer. I breathe to seem to whisper. Dream a little dreamer. No. You have to go inside and you find something that makes you happy. Whatever it is, just let it out. Moving to greater than 6 miles on Friday morning. Stars shining bright above me. I breathe to seem to whisper. Sycamore tree, dream a little dreamer. I breathe to seem to whisper.
Mic check, mic check. If you can hear me, let me make sure my mic is working. Mic check, mic check. Okay, so that's working. That's working. What's going on, people? What's going on? It's Mike Seville, one half of the dynamic duo of this community beacon channel. The brother, I thought the brother overslept. I thought Elder Joel Simmons overslept. I just checked in with him. He will be joining us shortly. We have an excellent conversation that we'll be having today based upon relationships. You know what you're here for. You know what we sent out. Hopefully you did. If you didn't, then this is what we're talking about today. Developing relationships that matter. Of course, this is some filler time. Hope everyone had an excellent week. We're going to end it powerfully tonight. This is brought to you by Mike Seville Real Estate, brokered by EXP. Let me tell you something. And we're going to go into relationships and people. So this week I was honored. I was honored to be able to lead our team meeting at the Boca Raton office for a bunch of our agents. And man, I had an excellent time. We have some young talent that's really doing excellent things out here for our clients, for the people, for them, and doing within themselves. Our office, I know a lot of real estate offices say this, but our office is really different. People are really here to help others, and it shows by the enthusiasm. It shows by their attentiveness, and man, there's some things that it's a special office, and it's a great feeling. So I'm excited to be a part of that. Of course, we have some excellent things that are in the works for the future. One of our leaders, Mike Johnson, the leader, Mike Johnson. Let me say, Mike got me going back to Boca. I was off in Colombia this weekend for a 10-day retreat with one of the greatest real estate coaches and mentor minds, Danny Morales. And I'm looking at the pictures and the information he's already sending back and the love he's sending back. And it's been excellent. So that probably was one of the highlights of my week. So I enjoyed it. Still waiting. The brother said he'd be on in 3 minutes. I don't want to start this discussion without him. So you all, just stay tuned. Did you all enjoy the video that we sent out last week? Because when we know that we're not going to be available, we may have some kind of schedule conflicts. We'll do a video earlier. I didn't know that he was going to have the schedule conflict. Had we known, we would have done this yesterday, because we planned this show yesterday, and had we known, we could have just did the show yesterday as well. But it was this the little show that we had last week. I saw a couple of you commenting in the show. I thought that was awesome. I tried to keep up with you when I did get to see that there were comments being made. Shouts out to Ty Lorick. Man, Ty, I'm checking out your growth. I'm excited about your growth, and I can already tell. So, we definitely have to get back in contact. I know you're like a jet setter now, which is excellent. I love to see, us expand ourselves and fly. So that was dope. And I saw a couple other people comment as well. Like I said, it wasn't a live show. We scheduled it, and then we played it at this time, the 6:30 time that we've decided would be good. And if you all think there's a different time, let us know as well, because we're open. We're building it as we fly, as the brother says. Excuse me. One of the reasons that this show came about, I was inspired by true life events. And one of the reasons that this show came about was I received a phone call from someone that seemingly was close to me. seemingly, and I say seemingly because they are, like, we're related. We're related. And so this person has essentially gotten into business, becoming an entrepreneur or more, a salesperson. Actually, let's call it a salesperson. And he reached out, and instead of us having a discussion like you knew me, or you know a person, it's this sales talk. And I think it's imperative that even as we become entrepreneurs, because this can happen a lot, and we'll discuss a couple different things, but in regard to this point, as you become an entrepreneur, a business person, you go out on your own and you're no longer being fed by the corporate or the government or whatever, we're a boss, so to speak. Once you go from W-2 to 1099 and become a salesperson, and you're reaching out to what some people say is your sphere of influence, your circle of friends. There's a bunch of different names. In real estate, we tend to call it your SOI. If you're reaching out to your SOI, you still need to have a conversation with those people as if they're because they are your friends and your family and your associates that you speak to regularly. You can't go from all, Friday nights having beers and just talking about nothing to every Friday night when you come over, you're talking about whatever it is. You start to alienate people, and people start to move away from you. Now, there's some people that don't care. There are some people who they draw that line in the sand. They say they're salespeople, and you're gonna hear let's say it's a real estate person. You're gonna hear about this real estate, and I'm gonna ask you whether or not you're buying or selling a home. 1,000%. There are some people that's just the way that it is. Which goes a little bit further. How you need to, even if a skilled salesperson. Let's go there. A skilled salesperson is going to know when to turn it on. A skilled salesperson is going to take a look at the person's personality, because I think it's important that you understand the type of person that you're dealing with. That's what a skilled salesperson would do. And I remember when I first started in real estate and becoming a licensed agent, when I was able to help others or support others, I'd rather say I was there to support others. I didn't want to hear about these different personalities. Like for me personally, like I'm a dominant driver. Like I'm like let's get to the point. You're calling me and it's bop, 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 A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's just my personality. And then you have some other people who you got to kind of beat around the bush with. Not beat around the bush. You have to have actual conversations. People want to feel like as if you care. Like I would rather you just get to the point. Some people would rather that you go around and some people would rather having a somewhat shallow type conversation. Let's call it what it is. I'm a deep diver. Some people like having these shallow conversations, which is cool. Once again, it's all about identifying the person who you are attempting to get into conversation with in regards to, in this case, like I said, real estate. But at the same time, if I'm talking to my aunt, I can't just be talking about real estate like that. We got to kind of come around to exactly what it is that we're talking about. But either way, so it inspired me because I had to talk to this person who called me, attempting to solicit my business, which I'm all for. Listen, I'm one of the easiest people to sell to if you know who I am, and if you have what I want. Or at that point, I guess you would have to convince me. But more often than not, I'm a pretty easy person to sell to if I can see the value in it. I don't have to do, a bunch of checking and figuring out. Like if it's something I want to move through, then that's what I do. If you're watching this, if you can comment like a 1 or something, if you can hear me, please do that. I'd like to see if this comes up in the comments. If not, I might have to change a couple of things around as we wait on Brother Simmons, who was supposed to be here about 10 minutes ago. If you can comment, give me a 1. Check. Oh, boom. Ty, I see you. All right, cool. Ty, I don't know if you caught me speaking about you. I caught what you were doing last week. You know, like I said, it wasn't a live video that we shot. We kind of we shot it a couple days earlier, but I saw some of the comments. I commented on it, and earlier in this talk, I was saying that I'm proud of you, man. I'm glad to see your growth. Growth. I'm from Florida. Growth. I'm glad to see your growth. I know you're a jet setter. I'm glad you were able to check in right now as we wait on Joel to talk about these developing relationships. And I'll give him a couple more minutes. I give him about 2 more minutes. And if not, I'm just going to dive right into it. But yeah, I saw the comments that you were making, man. And, you know, working with the city, as we both did, having to deal with that closed group. And, I try not to pass judgment on it, but you can see why I started going to Toastmasters. I had to expand. You know, when there's that one track mind going on, which, you know, some of the things I agree with, I think ultimately most people agree on 80% of things, right? But then, you know, when it comes to execution, when it comes to getting out of victim mentality, when it comes to gotta find Joe like Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, you're right. You're right. The brother told me he was 3 minutes away. And that was almost 15 minutes ago. Yeah, but when you go to the city and I mean, excuse me, when you start talking about growth, when you start talking about execution, when you start talking about getting out of a victim mentality, accountability, when you start talking those kind of things, that starts to separate the real from the talkers. You know, from the people who want to maintain the status quo. Oh, here he is. Here the brother is. People who want to maintain the status quo, and you see what Ty wrote up there, right?
No, let me see what he says. Gotta find Joel like Marshawn Lynch.
We levying out penalties right now, man. It's like
Hey, look, I like Ty. I like Ty. Ty's
Ty,
all right with me.
Ty, what you think? $2 a minute? We'll do $2. Put it in the jar. I to be honest with you, brother, I said, man, because about 15 minutes before we got on, I said, boy, I'm getting, you know, the itis had hit me. I hadn't eaten all day, and I decided to have some salmon. And you know, when that your blood sugar starts, you know, it'll send a spike in your blood sugar. And all of a sudden, I started feeling a little bit tired. I said, "Oh man, maybe I should take a 10-minute nap." But I said, "Nah, let me get to it." So I said,
Hey, listen, you did it, man. And then I tell you, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that little call you gave right then, because like I was legitimately leaving. I mean, the people don't understand. You know, I was legitimately leaving from a call. Like I got my other uniform right there. You know what I mean? You know, I don't want to. I had an extra shirt in the car. I'm like, yeah, I got to be ready for this. Got to be ready for this. This is the real deal. You know, we want to do this. We want to be real with it every single time. So yeah, I'm glad you did that, because like I said, legitimately just hopping back into the rescue.
Well, we here now, man. I'm glad to have you here. I was just talking about some of the things of the reason as to why, you know, I personally was inspired, and we spoke about this yesterday about me receiving a phone call from a person who I thought was family. I thought they were, and they didn't necessarily approach me as family in regards to reaching out to some of my network and contacts and developing a relationship with them. But you know, we are, you know, I found it interesting that me and this person already had the relationship, but the way that when the phone call was made, when we actually spoke on the phone, I felt like it was a cold call. So I was, you know, my thought process is like, don't turn hot leads into cold calls. Don't, you know what I mean? Like if you already have that hot lead, lead with what it is, and then obviously you and I started going into it about, I guess proximity and how proximity may differentiate a person's feeling about another a stranger's feeling about another stranger if you all know the same people. So we can get right into it. Let me put up this the banner, and we can start, man. Community Beacon, man. We 20 minutes and I was babbling, but we're here now. Let me see. Here we go. And remember, you all, don't forget to like and share. Please like and share as we drop some of this information for you.
I like it. I like it. The whole thing about developing relationships that matter it's a big deal. Even just like what you were just talking about right there, for a moment, and and the conversation that we had just a little bit with Ty, that's good stuff. Developing those types of relationships that matter, that's going to be a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a major thing. No matter what we're doing inside of our life, when we start to develop relationships that matter, we can build on those things. Like when it comes down to it, you don't really know what's going to happen. Where you're going with in life at the time being sometimes. So at my job, I got guys right now, because I've developed a certain type of relationship, they're all concerned about me. They're all concerned. There's a window right over here on the opposite side of me, and these guys are flashing up paper in the window, like, we're going to make you food. We're going to, they want to take care of me, because the relationship that we develop, it makes a difference, and I think that that's a real big thing. Sometimes people are just looking for what they're looking for. Everybody wants something.
But it's about value for. I always say it's value for value. Like you can't, and some people tend to take more than, and some people are takers, some people are givers. But there has to be some kind of balance in that relationship, or otherwise people will get tired of you. But I definitely think that we'll talk about developing these long-lasting, powerful, and being intentional with these relationships.
Very good point. So like point number one, in developing relationships, or developing relationships that matter, or to develop a proper relationship, is point number one. Take an extra minute to learn the people you meet. We have to do that. When you take the time to learn about somebody that you're meeting with, when you take that time, people will respect you for that extra moment that you took. It's like, hey, this guy, maybe he actually cares about the individual that I am, asking people about how their family is doing or how they're doing, so I'll give you an example of how beneficial this can be. And this is by no way means is, am I trying to gain something here? So I get this thought, and I'm that type of way. I get this thought, these feelings that I should do certain things at certain times, and I follow them to the best of my ability. Maybe like 90% of the time. So I get this thought, this feeling that comes over me, and it's like, hey, call this one guy up. I call him up. As soon as I call him up, I'm like, the first thing that comes to my mind is, this is the individual who can 100% help me in a different area of my life. And so, of course, I even thought about how he could help me in a different area of my life. But my main objective when I got on the telephone was like, hey, man, how are you doing?
Stop. What real quick.
Yeah.
Because that's the point within the point. How are you doing? And that goes back to the same conversation I was having before. This person didn't ask me how I was doing. How's the family? And then and not just to say how are you doing, but how are you doing in meaning. I know I'm jumping into the thing, but I think it's just a point of a point of a really important point that's just being said there, just in the conversation. How are you doing? All right, brother. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, but that's it. That's it. Like
you're picking up exactly what I'm putting down. That's hitting the nail on the head, because, and then meaning it, because when it came down to it, he was like, well, how are you doing? Okay, so he skipped my how are you doing and went to mine. And I'm like, listen, man, I'm doing great. I'm fantastic. This is going on, this is going on, this is going on. This is amazing. But before we even dive into anything else, I'm like, but honestly, what's going on with you? How are you doing? Again, and that's at that point in time, he said, well, to be honest with you, you caught me in a position, in a situation where I am dealing with something that is major. Major.
If you don't mind, brother, because I know you know the story, right? But I would love to get into to like the weeds with just this simple because it seems simple enough. Like what you're saying is like it seems simple enough, but there's certain things that are in there that I think need to be kind of brought out. So you started off with how you're doing, which I love, and we kind of spoke about how you need to mean that. This person didn't answer you, right? Is that what you said? He didn't answer you. He just immediately just said, how are you? How are you doing? And then oftentimes, and this is just this is because we're talking about developing these meaningful relationships, these are relationships that matter. That was the title of the show, developing relationships, how to develop successful, relationships. Oftentimes when you ask someone how they're doing, most people have like an automatic response. Like most people, almost everybody, we're already programmed to say this thing. Like for me, someone says, "Yeah, hey, what's going on?" When you call me, what's my response when you ask me, brother? Do you know what my automatic response is?
You were asking me how I was. Is everything all right? You was checking up on me to make sure I was good.
No, I'm saying when you ask me like how I'm doing. If you call me and like, "Hey, brother, how you doing?" Do you know what my automatic response is? Most people do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
if you're talking about your classic response, then yeah, because I end up giving that classic response too.
All
You
right.
know, yeah, well, because the thing about it is, man, I love it, I love
But
it.
but
I
what I,
love
what
it.
but I want to get into is that it's an automatic response. Like something could have happened, which you'll get to your story, but something could have happened, but for me, it's like, hey, man, another day, another way. You know what I mean? And it just goes on that. But what I want to get point is how and this is emotional intelligence here, is when you go back and you ask again, how are you doing? Because when you ask that second time, then that's a person who really wants to know how that person is doing. I just want to show you that because you may skip it, but I notice how your emotional intelligence is like on 1,000. So it's like, I think you even sensed that something was wrong. You're the empathizer, so you probably sensed it. But go ahead, brother. I just wanted to get to this point how because it's a science to this thing. It's a science, and there's an intentionality to it.
Well, I mean, I definitely would. I don't know. I get what you're saying by it's a science to it, and like some of this for me is just like it's natural because I
Right.
want to understand the people. You know what I mean? And I definitely give you props for that and pulling that out because I definitely I think that I was kind of plowing through it, and I don't mean to be that way right now. Um, you know, uh, it was something that was in my mind. It was like, what. What's going on? Man, let me talk to me what's going on. And it was at that very moment that I said that, it was like, he was like, you know what, you caught me at a specific time where he was literally just walking away from a family member who is going underneath the scalpel, like right now, within a couple of minutes. Like, this was huge. His world, in some way, because of how close the individual was to him, was like crashing. All in those very moments. And his idea initially was to put on this front and just check on me. I don't even know why he answered the phone. He answered phone, and he didn't even know which way he was going, you know. And we stopped everything, and I offered him an opportunity to pray. And his words to me were, "I haven't prayed in so long, I don't even know, I wouldn't even know where to begin." So I told him, I said, "This is what you do. You say, hey, you know what? I would like to pray. Would you mind praying?" And that's it. I'll take care of the rest. And he did. He said exactly those words. I prayed. We prayed. And at the end of the prayer, he said, "You know what? I feel so much better." And then he started laughing, which was proof. And it's like that, what happened after that for him was a great deal. But in turn, he gave me knowledge that literally increased my net worth by tens of thousands of dollars. I was not looking for that. I didn't know that that was coming, had no clue that that was on its way. But when the opportunity was there to actually, to actually hear that there was a need there that could be met and that I could help in meeting that need, I decided to do it because the relationship was more important than the desired outcome. When we begin to build these types of relationships where then it is destiny that good things are coming our way. It's destiny. It's destined that good things are coming our way, you know? And I mean, I don't know how much more I can tell the people out there of how successful that was as far as it goes for him, the weight being lifted off of his shoulders. And I will tell you now that I've checked up with him multiple times since that day, and his loved one is doing well. They're doing well. They're not in the hospital anymore. They're doing well. And I will also tell you that, I already received my wire. He didn't give it to me. He broke down this knowledge and I utilized it immediately. Just like he broke down the knowledge that I gave him. He asked me, where do I start praying? I told him. He broke it down immediately. And that's what I meant by being intentional on the last show, is that when you're intentionally, the way you live, when you live intentionally, things begin to manifest immediately. And you can have a lot of success when you are intentional in your relationship building. And that goes both ways. But this is the example I wanted to share with us tonight.
Yeah, I remember the conversation that you had. I think you called me like right afterwards after you had that conversation.
I did.
And I think what we need, not think, I know, is that people, the saying goes, your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. We got to understand that money is also just a tool. Well, so you can gain money and you can lose money, because money is forever flowing. It is what it is, and it's out there in abundance. Just to throw that out at you all, that money is out there in abundance. But if you have a network filled with people whom are like-minded, who understand the value of having you around or having you in their network, or knowing you as such, like, you can never technically go broke. Because if you start to, I'd like to say curate. That's the word I want to use. If you start to curate the right people around you, you will never, in regards to money, you will never go broke. In regards to love, you'll always have it. In regards to support, you'll always have it. But it does take time to start to curate it. Yeah, so you definitely, you know, you want to take your time, because call me what you want to call me. I think, and Ty and I were talking about this a little bit earlier before we got on. Is first off, you just don't want everybody to be in your network and your network. Like, so it takes getting to know someone and actually listening. I think that's key. Listening to the cues of, man, is this person is this person the kind of person that I want to have around me? You know what I mean? Is this person like-minded? Does this person value me being around? Is all this person that this person does, is this person takes, or is this person a giver? Or is there, you know, where is the equal exchange? I think someone said equal exchange is not robbery. There's another saying. I don't know who to attribute it to. But excuse me, fair exchange. Fair exchange is not robbery. So how I like to approach things, every time I go somewhere, I want to add value. Matter of fact, that's one of my mantras in the morning. I want to be able to add value to people, and I want to be able to extract value from people. Add value and extract value, because there has to be that value of exchange. So that's that. I think that, so that was the first point. I think, what do you define like as far as a successful relationship? How do you define it?
You know, before I go into that, I want to say that your mantra is very close to mine, you know, because mine is, today I'm going to give something to someone. I'm going to receive something from someone, and I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. You know, so it's very close. And like you were talking about, like-minded people. Um, and hold that question just for one moment, in case I lose it, because I wanted to also um, point out this, when it comes down to like the relationships and everything. I mean, you know, we have a great opportunity as people, because we meet people every day. Everyone is in some type of relationship with everybody. It's just different types of relationships. That's it. So when we start talking about a successful relationship, we're talking about, I can have a successful relationship with anybody. But it doesn't mean that will be a business relationship, or it'll be a relationship where I'm bringing somebody into my family, or where they're so close to me that they're like a brother to me. You know, some people, it's just a business relationship, and it's just, I come in, I do my job, they do their job, I'll get them a sheet of paper, or I'll pull off something from the copy machine, fax machine, and put it on their desk, because I just want to be generous, I want to be kind, and that's it. There's nothing more to it, you know. But as far as it goes for the success in the relationships, in order to be successful, there has to be, like Mike, you were just saying, a give and a take. It has to be mutual. There has to be a mutual agreement that, I am not going to take everything from you and never give anything back. You know, so when I'm looking at these relationships, to get more to your question, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that. Just recently, I had a conversation with somebody else. It was a meet and greet over the end over one of these. I think it was StreamYard, as a matter of fact, live stream. So anyway, meet and greet with this individual, and I'm like, they're immediately they're talking to me. They're like, you know what? The day was this, the day was that. I had to call you up. I had to ask for a couple minutes, and I was glad that you could wait just a few minutes. That was the conversation. That's how we started our conversation. Never talked with this person before, but it started that way because that's the reality of life, is that people are doing. We're all doing. We're all going. We're all moving. We're all in motion. And we have to understand that. So many that I believe that there are still many that are on like this business level tycoon type of stuff, where it's so rigid and so pressed that you feel as if you can't even get anything in good for the wise. And so in the end, I end up speaking with this individual, and they're like, well, you could do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. And then I tell them, you know what, you could do A, B, C. And we're like exchanging, exchanging. And before you know it, it's more like a friendship there because we both recognize that we're willing to offer and as well as receive. So I believe in building successful relationships. There has to be a level of trust. You have to be able to trust somebody. You know, even a certain amount of trust has to be there. A level of respect.
I like respect over trust.
You have to.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, granted, I mean, I'm not saying that you're trusting somebody with your child, but at a certain point in time, you have to have a certain amount of a level of trust, that somebody will at least do what they say that they're going to do, you know. But nonetheless, this is what I'm looking for: a certain level of trust, a certain level of respect, right? And then a certain level of compassion for me. There's got to be a certain level of compassion because I'm human, you know, and that means that I'm subject to error as well as other people are human. So I have a certain level of compassion as well, and I think that all those things kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, I definitely align with the compassion. Um, and I tend to be very rigid. So that's something that I kind of work on, and I can give grace, but that's not necessarily my first. Um, that's not necessarily my first reaction to something. My first reaction may not necessarily be that compassion or that compassion or giving grace. My first reaction is normally like, hey, you said you were going to do this, and so I believe you're going to do it. But that's something else.
No,
Definitely.
I think you're on. I think that's it though. You're on it, because that's giving the person the opportunity. I mean, you don't have to give them a second chance, but Mike, I believe that we tend to negate our sixth sense, if you will. I feel like sometimes people negate that. It's like you get this feeling about somebody, and then we just say, nah, it isn't. Well, maybe it is. You should listen to that sense, that conscience that's poking up inside of you. Especially when you're getting around my age, it's probably good sense, and maybe that's telling you don't trust this one, or don't trust them as far as you can see them. You know what I mean? So I think but that's not it. That's not part of my relationship with them. That's part of my relationship with myself.
I was going to
And
say that. I was going to say that with that sixth sense that you're talking about, that takes some refining, like the sixth sense and actually being able to hear. You know what I mean? Like actually hearing what the word that's being put into you, because that's it's coming up out of you. That takes some refining. But just through societal, societal and our environment and the way that we are nurtured, especially the way I was nurtured, so that trust thing is shaky. I'm working on that. I'm But the respect and the compassion, I guess essentially compassion sounds to me like something that is like a backwards looking thing, or something that happens at a moment by moment. But are you saying, when you're saying compassion, is it compassion as you as is it compassion as you see it? Like I mean, in the moment that it's happening, like
so
initially.
so so for me, but because I analyze second and I'm compassionate first, so
Okay.
I would have to analyze something afterwards. So I take a moment. Somebody shows up late. The first thing that comes to my mind is, man, is everything all right? What was going on in your life and stuff like that. Meanwhile, while I'm talking to him, while I'm being compassionate, in the back of my head, I'm starting to analyze every single word that's going down. You know, I'm asking that. You know, And if they're coming up with some stuff that sounds like it's gone sideways, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you had compassionate Joel. Now let's talk about why X didn't happen when it should have happened. You know what I mean? And that's me as a supervisor. Me as an individual just meeting somebody else on the street, that's me saying, okay, this relationship just ended. No need to talk anymore.
Here's a Ty says, I don't even ask how you doing anymore. He says, I ask how you're mental. So sometimes you got to know. I'm gonna tell you what the Bible says. What's that? Before you, what is it? Get you understanding.
With all thy getting,
With
get
all
understanding.
with all thy getting, get understanding. And so, I mean, you're Ty, you're gonna be hard pressed to get someone to tell you exactly what their mental is, especially if their mental isn't right. Because most people are walking around, they don't even know that their mental isn't, quote unquote right. So you need to get you some understanding. How you get understanding, that kind of like what Joel alluded to from the beginning, was through listening. Like you gotta,
Yes.
you gotta listen and ask clarifying questions. Oh my God, you know how much heartache I would have saved if I understood clarifying questions. Heck, even 4 or 5 months ago, if I knew if I was better at asking certain, because we're all growing, right? So I'm not the same person I was 5 to 6 months ago, because right now I have a lot of clarifying questions for certain people. But you got to get understanding, get an understanding of the person who you are, you're speaking with, and then you can make that judgment on how their mental is. Because 1000%, most, like I said, a lot of people may be sick, but they don't necessarily know that they're sick.
Very good, very good. And once again, going back to that same scenario for me, that individual was, their objective was to not include me into their personal life.
Right.
And so this is what I mean by compassion, because and this is why, okay, so compassion and clarifying questions. This is why the empathizer and the analyzer work so well together. That's why. That's why. That's what just happened right there. Is because the compassion, peeks his head out. It's like, okay, there's something else. There's something deeper here. The analyzer starts to take apart what it's receiving. And it's like, okay, I found a gap. The compassionate individual is like, all right, I'm going to investigate that gap and see what's going on, right? So I had recently this situation. I'm on a board as well. I'm on a few boards. Anyway, I'm on this board, and somebody got up there, and they're ripping at the president of the board, and they're like, "Let me tell you something. I brought this issue to the board months ago, and what I heard was, go out there, find out whatever that, go find this piece of equipment, buy it, and then put it up, and then tell us how much it costs." We'll reimburse you. Now, for an analyzer, that might have been okay. We're like, all right, I get my money back. No problem. I'm going to do it. But this individual was a highly emotional individual, and they wasn't going for that. They about blew their top off of this thing. And I'm listening to the rest of the board, answer this individual, and they're like, and so what happened is that they had a priceless artifact that they had gotten across the seas, and it was sitting underneath a tree. And somebody came by and cut the tree down. They wanted the tree to come down. They wanted the tree or part of the tree to come down, but they didn't want to lose their priceless artifact neither. So during that same period of time, somebody had stopped by and they destroyed something else. So they continue to talk about the other thing that was destroyed. So in the end of the day, when the board individual said, go back and price out the other thing and come back and we'll reimburse you, they failed to see that it was really the priceless artifact. And it was not just the priceless artifact, it was the fact that they felt as if they were being overlooked. That's what was going on.
Right.
And so I just sat there and I looked at him. I said, listen, we apologize. And I'm being serious. I'm telling you all this story, but I just gave it to him straight out. I said, we apologize. Whether it was the communication between you and the board, the communication between you and this individual, the communication between you and this individual, there is nothing that we can do to replace that artifact. And we apologize for that. And I told him, I said, I would love for you to tell me what I personally could do, because I just kind of like want to get up and do something for you myself. I can't speak on behalf of the board. I didn't tell him I can't speak on behalf of the board in that sense, because it wasn't my position. But if there was something I could do personally, aside from taking a plane flight somewhere else, and they just looked at me, and you could see all of the angst and frustration. It just kind of like rolled off of them, and they started smiling. After that, it was easy. It was like, all right, we're gonna send somebody over there to go fix your thing, and they're gonna be fine. And we didn't even talk about the artifact anymore. And
Right.
you had it up there just for a moment. That's what it was. It was this it. You know, you had it up on the screen. That's it. Develop, invest, success. So for those y'all who want to know how to make a successful relationship, this is what we're talking about. First, you got to develop that relationship. You have to invest in it, and then it's going to produce success. So that was kind of what happened at that very moment. I bridged the gap by, first of all, developing a relationship by letting them know I do understand. Maybe nobody else does, but I understand. You know,
That person wanted to be heard.
that was it.
Yeah, I definitely would have wrote it off. I would have been, I would have said, well, how much? Like, what is it going to cost something? Are you going to sue us? Like, what's going to be the next step? But this person is what, and you need that though. That's valuable, because I would rather spend the money than be vested emotionally in this person's artifact that was outside that got broke down. But I get it.
Well, that was the issue. That was the reason why it kept coming up, was because the individual wasn't trying to bypass them. They were like, listen, how much does it cost? It was a garage door opener. How much does it cost? It's like, what is it, $100? Go out there and buy it. Just tell us. Bring us the receipt. We'll give it to you. But that wasn't it. And they even came back. They said, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to tell me to take a plane flight, go across the seas, and get my artifact, and then you're going to give me that back too. I was like, that was a smart one. That was good. But no, that wasn't it, man. And so, sometimes if you want your relationships to work, sometimes you have to, all the time, you got to invest.
You got to invest. Yeah.
You have to put yourself in a position where you feel uncomfortable. That's why you got to have a level of trust.
You got to develop a level of trust. And
that's right. That's right.
I ain't getting past the first part if I don't develop that level to the interest of where I'm not investing in it. And I'm gonna tell you what that does though, because that definitely shows a blind spot in just being the analyzer, is the amount of relationships that I may miss out on because I don't have that level of trust from the beginning. Like, I have to have, you got to skip a couple of hurdles in order for me to be like, okay, I trust this person to do what it is that they say they're going to do. You know what I mean? So, but there's probably a lot of relationships that I don't get involved with, or I let go to the wayside just because, or don't develop at all, right? Because I don't get past that part of wanting to get uncomfortable, to your point, and invest in it, because I don't have the trust for that person as of yet. So that's something of where, even though being the analyzer, and oftentimes what we do is me being as an analyzer, and you being in your role as an empathizer, is that we set up these walls, and so my wall is that analyzing wall, but instead of it's set up to keep things out, but it doesn't allow me to explore everything that's out there. You know what I mean? So it's important that we recognize this analyzer versus empathizer. I don't think one is either like leagues above the other, but we all can kind of start to amalgamate these different thought process together in order to become a better person, because that's growth. Growth is going to happen with me becoming more of an empathizer, that because I'm not comfortable in that role. So you got to get uncomfortable for growth. And then, you know, and then your aspect of it, starting to become more logical at it, and starting to see things from my somewhat let me find a better word for it. My man, I know the word I want to use, but just from a viewpoint of like, I don't know those guys. You know what I mean? Like, there was a song that said no new friends. You know what I mean? Like, it's like no new friends, or your day ones, whatever. But as I know, the key to life is people. So we have to start developing more successful relationships with more people, as opposed to looking at everybody, giving everyone the side eye for everything it is that they're doing. Yeah, I'm with it, brother. Cool. So we talked about developing the relationships. I think, just to summarize that point, you were talking about having that level of trust, that respect, that compassion, and really just opening up the conversation by actually caring about what's going on with that other person, the how you doing, and listening. Would that pretty much surmise developing?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely ready to go on to invest, because
Right.
once we get to invest, then we can start talking about what you were just mentioning. As far as being an analyzer, and how you're thinking about logically. The pros and cons of that relationship.
Right. So I think we already transitioned into it just by saying that for an analyzer's side of things, to invest in a relationship would be opening up to that trust part a little bit more. Because when I hear invest, it's emotionally, it may be monetarily, but it's just like taking some part of you and kind of giving it to that person, and trusting that person is going to do what they say they're going to do, or or not break what they're doing, break what you give them.
Hmm. I definitely hear you and feel you. I mean, I think that there's not a whole lot of time between develop and invest in some cases. Yeah, if we're talking about a relationship, like you're talking about you meet a girl or something like that, and you're trying to build something, then I think that we go really quickly. When we're talking about business relationships, man, that thing happens so fast, because you do have to analyze that thing, and you have to make a decision really quickly, because as sure as the opportunity is there, it could be gone. You know, and in many a case, if you overthink it, then you lose it. And that's just the way it is. A lot of the things that I've been able to do, and the goals that I've been able to reach, is because I analyzed it immediately, and I use my powers of empathy, my powers of sensing people and the realness of people, which I definitely would not tell people to go out there and do some of the things that I do in that type of fashion. I think that there should be a little more analyzing, but I have a way of checking with my sixth man, so to speak, before I make a move, and my sixth man is always right. It's just whether or not I actually listen. so, but I definitely would say the investment part. When it comes down to investment, I would have to say this, as like lesson number 2 in this whole thing. I'd have to say this, that it is better to find out that that is a bad relationship in the beginning than it is to recognize it after you've fully invested. So it's worth it to me to give over a little bit of trust, to give over a little bit of trust. It's worth it to me to give over a little bit of compassion. It's worth it to me to give over a little bit to that other individual in the beginning, and find out just like I thought. This relationship ain't going nowhere. You know, one of my favorite sayings of late, and you know it, Mike, is just how how much will you pay for education? How much your education worth? You know, some people invest thousands, tens of thousands, $100,000 and they still don't have a job out there. How much is your education worth? So when I meet somebody and it feels as if it's the right thing, you know, what is that worth to me? You know, because I'm going to be educated
Right.
one way or the other.
So for me, with the investing part is, and I try to get this thing over with from the beginning. I always give someone something to do. So I give a person, because for me, a person's word and a person who's able to put certain things into action is going to separate it. So so for me, I tend to be probably a lot more rigid in that aspect of it, especially in the compassion, especially if we're talking about, well, shoot, for me, business or personal, because I'm kind of rigid in both. But it's like, okay, it's always something. There's always something that I'm giving the person to do. Because what I found is like 95% of people aren't going to do things, or aren't who they say they are, or aren't going to do what they say they're going to do. So I'll give person that room of okay, well, this is what we'll do. And this is what I'm responsible for. This is what you're responsible for. Let's meet back here. And the thing about this part of the relationship is that it's always happening. Like, you don't just invest in a relationship from the beginning and then that's it for the rest of for me anyway, for the rest of the relationship. I think the relationship is always, first off, I think our relationships should always be growing. If they're not growing, then there's I don't think it's a successful relationship. It's just what's the word? There's seasons and reasons, right? So it could be a season, it could be a reason, but especially if it's not growing, but there's always something that can be going. So now, as we go deeper into relationship, then obviously my trust is growing a lot more. My compassion is more than likely growing a lot more. So now that person may have a lot more wiggle room, or I give them more room to err. And if they do err, I'll be more forgiving the more I invest into a relationship. But there's always a breaking point. There's always a point to where it comes from me when I have to evaluate, because I guess that's what I'm saying is I'm always reevaluating relationships and evaluating them to see exactly what is the, like I said from the beginning, is the value for value. So are we continuing to add value to each other? Are we continuing to multiply? And then if it's worth it as well, because there are some people who you have, and I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but sometimes when I'm in relationship with a person, it needs to be in exponential growth. It needs to be in multiples. Like, I know when you and I get together and I'm just asking a question, like we'll have phone conversations and I'm just asking this specific question. But then by the time we finish the conversation, we've went leaps and bounds above that conversation. So now it's no longer, okay, I came with a specific situation, a specific question, but I'm leaving with a principle. You know what I mean? So for me, like that's exponential growth. That's exponential value that I'm gaining from that conversation, from this relationship. But if I come to you and it's just the same thing over and over again, and we're not having exponential growth, it has to be in multiples. If you're not adding multiply to the life, then then you're kind of on a short, a narrow field with me. You know what I mean? So that's
Gotcha.
I just think investing, because it is investing. So it's almost like it's an action. What is it? A verb, like a verb tense word. I don't know what the proper word for it is, but it's always happening.
Man, those are good points. Those are good points. And the thing that comes to my mind was this. This saying that Jesus had mentioned, right? And what he was saying is, there was the sower went out. I think we might have talked about the sower before, but at the end of this parable of the sower, You know, the where the seed was sown in good ground, the good ground gave forth, some 30, some 50, some 100 fold. And so, you're talking about investment. A relationship is an investment. A relationship can be one of your greatest assets, you know. And so, with that being said, think about it. If we all were to think about it in terms of, okay, I'm going to invest in stocks. I'm going to invest in stocks. I'm going to invest in real estate, and I'm going to invest in intellectual property. My intellectual property, maybe I think that is my greatest asset, but it ain't bringing me no money right now. My stocks, they're giving me a 5% increase, a 5 to 10% increase. Okay, I like that. And my real estate, say my real estate is bringing me in more than that 5 to 10. So now I got 3 different assets, 3 different relationships I'm holding. I can get rid of any of them, but all of them still have the potential of growth. So I believe what we need to do is we need to form an inner outer circle around all of these things. And what do I mean by that? All right. So the inner outer circle, the inner circle is me. I am the thing that is in between all of those relationships. So when I draw that circle around myself, I need to see, am I doing everything that I possibly need to do to make this relationship fulfill, to make it fruitful? Am I doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing? Do I have enough knowledge in it? Do I need to learn more? Do I need to work more? Am I skipping out on my own progress to make this relationship better? And then the outer circle is, I'm looking at those relationships specifically. Are those relationships beneficial to me? Or like you said, reasons and seasons, or is the season past for that relationship? Is it a good time for me to break away from this relationship, or should we just go ahead and call peace and move our own ways? Because later on, don't burn the bridge, because later on, maybe I might need to walk across that bridge again. So I definitely want to say that, there are going to be relationships that are not going to sprout and give you as much as much potential, or as much energy, or as much knowledge, or as much back, as others. But it doesn't always necessarily mean that relationship is over. The thing that we want is success in the relationship. And progress is success, whether it's a little or it's a lot. Success is still success. And I'll take progress over digress any day.
You're more lenient with it than I am. I definitely don't. So I agree with most of your points, as we often do. You know what I mean? I agree with 90, probably 95, 99% of everything you say.
I'll take it.
I agree with everything you say. I'm gonna tell you what. There's some relationships. The success in it is that it is over. There's certain paths, there's certain things, there's certain people that I don't have any wants or needs or any benefit of being around. Like I said, there was for certain people Drake says there's some people are here for not a long time, but just for a good time. You know what I mean? Like, so there's certain things that can go, and there's certain relationships where, like, you like, I'm not saying that a person needs to burn their bridges, like, hey, I'm not dealing with you no more, kind of deal. But okay, all right, so I'm gonna go with you as well, because I'm going along that path. You need to minimize your time with certain people, because yeah. So I will concede that okay, this relationship is just it's not that it's a but I just don't see the success in it. If I don't want to be,
if there's no, but brother, but that's the point. If there is no longer success, then the relationship has come to its close.
Okay.
Okay. And yeah. I mean, it just is what it is. It's come to its close. You know what I mean? I mean, If there's no more gain in the relationship, then there's no more gain. If there's a little bit of gain, if you still gain more, if you're putting in, I'm just using money for a second. If you're putting in $5 and you're getting back six, you still have gain. Now, maybe you don't care for that gain anymore. So to you, that gain is nothing. That's like, what am I'm wasting my time for $1 gain. I could, and that's what I meant by, if I have intellectual property and I believe that it will give me something, but it ain't giving me a dime right now. But I have of these other two properties that one of them give me 5 to 10, the other one give me 10 plus. Then maybe I should just take whatever I'm putting in my intellectual property and put it inside. Right. So and that's the way relationships are, right? I mean, there is a difference when you form a bond with somebody, like marriage. That changes the dynamics of it. And so your inner outer circle, they change, because you should not just be, getting rid of your spouse just because you're not getting any gain. You need to start reinvesting in.
Tell that to the 60% of people who are getting divorced, and tell that
them to come see me. Tell them to come see me. I'm serious.
Listen,
come see life,
you don't know when you started speaking, real quick. When you started speaking, I was like, I'm ready to transition to this conversation. That's why when you said, before you said it, I was like, I want to talk about this marriage thing. And then you brought it up. That's why I said, boy, God is good, because he's like working the consciousness of it. So let's talk about it real quick. And because that's an excellent point. And I'm gonna tell you what, I think most brothers, men, believe that. And I want to go over a couple of stats. So within the Western culture, our community, let me not say the Black community is worse, but let's talk about. I want to talk about the culture as a whole. So you got over a 50% divorce rate, and then depending on what demographic you have, it's even worse than that actually. All right, because let me just talk about the divorce rate. I don't want to get us too down in the dumps. But let me put this out there. Only 1 in every 4 Black women will be married in their lifetime. I just want to put that out there. But apart, which is great, and 70% of kids are born out of wedlock. Okay, so apart from those stats, talking about marriage, there's over a 50%, and I want to put in here, but we'll clip this out. So there's a 50%, over 50% divorce rate. Depending on the demographic, in the Black community, it's like 80-something%. In other communities, it's about 70+%. Overall, it's about 70+%, but 80+% of divorces are initiated by the wife, by the woman in the relationship. So we're saying that only 20% of the divorces are initiated by the man. That's why I said that I believe most men tend to agree with you that if this marriage or this relationship within this marriage isn't necessarily, and let me put this in the chat, Jay, because I'd love to see if anybody else wants to comment on it.
While you're doing that, Mike, I want to throw out this other word out there, communication.
Go ahead.
There's something that communication. So I need building onto something. Well, go ahead.
So you got this 20%. So like I said, I think most men would agree with you, because only 20% of them, 20 to 30%, depending on their demographic, are the ones who are filing for divorce. The number one reason of divorce is filing for divorce. 100% of divorces are filed because 100% of divorce happened because someone filed for it, right? So when you speak on that, when you're speaking on staying within a marriage, and I think most men would rather stay in the marriage. However, because of family law, especially in the Western culture, women, I don't want to say they're incentivized, but they are the ones who normally come out on top in their divorces. women in the last since 1950, because of the family laws, most women tend to end up getting the children. And now they're starting to kind of go back, and it's like a 50-50 deal if you're married. But some men have to, in some states, men have to fight just to gain some type of custody of their children, because the women normally get it. And then apart from that, the women end up getting most of they end up getting, you know, the alimony, if there's alimony, and they definitely get the child support. So what happens after after divorces, you see a lot of men who have to end up getting into roommate situations, or who are financially devastated, whereas the woman ends up getting X amount of money. So they kind of, because they know that the government, they can use the government, and this is like a weapon for some women. The government are the actual enforcers of the marriages. So when we're saying that we want to stay in these marriages, which, like I said, I think most men are willing to stay in the marriages. What are your thoughts on that?
So like I said, send them to me, you know. Believe it or not, I got a lot that I can help y'all out there with.
I believe it. I know it. I know you can.
Yeah, I'm 100% confident about that.
How about before you get married? How about
they should see me before they get married. That's part of the issue. That's part of the issue. You know, just to put it out there, you know, when we are developing that relationship with that beautiful woman, you know, and y'all women are out there developing that relationship with that handsome man, you know, when that's going on, you know, I see it, Mike. That's a little early, but I like it. I'm about to dig into that though, so it's good. They need to see that. Go ahead, let it roll, man. Let it roll. I like it. You know, before that happens, we got to step away from, you know, falling in love with the attributes of an individual. You know, oh, they're so beautiful. You know, oh, they treat me nice. That's really good. They should treat you nice, but they should treat you nice forever. You know, it should be a forever thing. So I'm a big fan of checking out their mama, checking out their dad, checking out their grandmama, checking out their granddad, going to their house, you know, going out to one of their barbecues or whatever it is, and find out how their people are at, you know. How do they get along with the rest of their family? You know, does their family call them stuff? Do their friends call them stuff? Why do they call them stuff? You know, do they call them good things? They call them bad things, because somebody else knows a whole lot more about that individual that you're checking out than you do. And you need to, just like I said before, that sixth man, that gut instinct, that conscience is in the back of your mind, and you like, something ain't right. Something don't smell right, you know? But them ladies look like but his chest, and them men are like but her, you know, whatever. And their eyes are wide open because they just can't wait. You know, this may not be everybody out there, but there's a lot out there that are going through that type of issue where their eyes, you know, my mom used to tell me, don't eat more than what your eyes can contain, or something like that. Your eyes are bigger than your stomach. She used to tell me that all the time, because I'd be like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want that. But she put on the plate, she said, you got to eat it all. You got to eat it all. Comes through the 3 C's, you know, commitment. You know, when you're getting married, you realize that you're putting yourself into a commitment. This is commitment. You're making an agreement, you know, for better, for worse, you know, for richer, for poor, and sickness and health, till death do us part. It don't say nothing about us being happy. So you got to work to make happiness happen. You made a commitment that even when you were not happy, you were going to stay there. That's a heavy thing to take for those of us that are. Go ahead.
Because I just want to speak on that point real quick. I always thought happiness is more so of a man. That's great that you're happy. You know what I mean? Like, I think like that's more of like I don't want to call it a side dish, but it's like it's an extra in the marriage, because when you're what you're talking about is like the duties. Like you're like there's marital duties, and I didn't hear any of the marital duties in that I'm gonna make you happy, because ultimately you got to make yourself happy. Like that's what happiness is. It comes from within. But this happiness thing, like I'm just not happy. I don't know what to do with that. But go
No, that's perfect. I'm glad you said that, because this is what I meant by earlier, the inner outer circle. So like the inner outer circle, you mentioned it, you got to make yourself happy. When you make yourself happy, when you marry somebody, they should be just like you.
Explain that. Explain. Man, this almost like another show though.
It is.
I think we're going down, and I matter of fact, it should be like the next show, because you're going down a path, because this is what you get into is really deep. So I want you to rock out on it. But I do think that this is this is a whole deep dive into a show, and I can just kick back, and I'm bringing popcorn because I'm just gonna listen. I'm gonna be open and listening to what you say, because you've been in a successful marriage, for how many years?
23 years. 23 years. Yeah.
23 years.
Yeah, so, and I'm 42. So I was married when I was 19. So for all the people out there that say they can't do it when they're young,
but here's a caveat though. You're gonna have that show, and I'm really gonna bring my popcorn. I might shut my mic off for the most part.
Nah, don't do that.
No, I'm not, because I think, even 23 years ago, so there's a wealth of knowledge that I can learn, or most people can learn anyways, but I'm including myself into it from you and that successful relationship.
Thank you.
With the advent of this doggone internet.
Yeah.
which is a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
But more so for, and even my age group, would you think that my age group, us older millennials, like we kind of would have skipped some of this stuff, because you would think that, people wouldn't put their worth, they wouldn't judge their worth based on the internet. But what I've seen, especially in the last year, probably last 3 years, of how the internet has actually changed mindsets and changed almost somewhat, I'm not gonna say human nature, but changed people's perspectives on who they are and how they get validated. Because before, let's just take a young woman, for instance. A young woman would have to leave the house and go to the mall or something, and this is what some people do, to get noticed or to get validated for their beauty, right? Like that they would have to actually go. Now, all they have to do is go take a selfie or a picture or whatever the case may be, and then you have this inundation of likes or inundation of, and then you have people who, if they don't get X amount of likes, they're deleting this picture. So a lot of people are developing their self-worth not based upon even their husband in the marriage. Like I said, you would have to put in work to get validated. If you had a husband, you had to actually go out for someone else to see if you were seeking that kind of validation. Now you get that validation almost immediately. So I start to see people in relationships, whether they're married or I think marriage is the ultimate relationship. So let's say they're married, but then they're posting certain things online to get the attention and validation of other people, which they will get on the internet or on social media. So I think a lot of these things have changed. However, I think the principle and the foundation remain the same. So you're a man that's based upon the principles and the foundation. That's what you're going to teach. So I said all that just to come back to that the principles and the foundations that I'm going to hear hopefully next week is what we decide on is going to inform myself and a lot of other people who are seeking or probably in marriages, how they can they can stay committed within the marriage and follow along with 3 C's. All right, that's it. That was my thing. All right, you go ahead. I'm leaning back now.
Yeah, there's no reason to lean back. You just said we're gonna have this conversation on the next show.
But give them a taste. Give them a taste of it. Because I want to taste too. I might admit. Go ahead, Paul.
So, I mean, I think that you started to dive into it a little bit again. Also, remember, it's about that inner outer circle, and that inner outer circle is huge. You know, and I know that people don't really understand it. You know, I believe that people may not really understand it, but that inner circle is you. That's what everything that you can control is inside of that circle. You can't control nothing outside of that circle. And the earlier in a relationship that we recognize that, the better for us. There's another thing when it comes down to sometimes people that get into these relationships and they're committing themselves to other people because they see in this other person somebody that will make them better. It doesn't work that way. You got to make your own self better, and so we can end up becoming very dependent on other people, which means that we will allow ourselves to fail in order for someone else to prevail. And I think you said that eloquently earlier today, when you were referring to business partners and things like that. When it comes down to these relationships, husband and wife, there has to be equality. The give and take has got to be equal at all times. This is not something that can be unbalanced. The lady of justice holds her scales in the air, and at all times, husband and wife must be balanced. There has to be balance because the wife is just as much a part of the husband as the husband is a part of the wife. The two are supposed to become one. So if the two become one, then there must be equality. No longer don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing or vice versa, because all of those things only skew what is actually happening. The viewpoints change daily. So there must be an excellent amount of communication that is going on. This commitment that we have must build it. And so we were starting to get into happiness. What is happiness? Happiness is the feeling that I have inside of me because I'm alive. If my happiness is justified by the gift that I received or by the individual that is around me, then I no longer have happiness inside of me. So how then can I be an asset to anyone else to bring them up out of a dark day, right? That makes it extremely difficult. So now when we're talking about husband and wife, if one or the other is no longer happy, then they can no longer provide happiness to the other individual. And if we become dependent upon one another, then because the other individual can no longer make me happy, I need to seek happiness somewhere else. So now, living in this world that we're living in today, where it's as simple as clicking a button or sliding left or right, up or down, whatever it is, there's a whole lot of apps out there where all you got to do is you just slide your finger across, and then all of a sudden you get happiness. And it's fleeting. It's not there in the morning. You've lost it. As soon as you slide your finger left or right, you've lost it. Or as soon as you lay down with somebody and you get up and they go their way, you've lost it. Happiness is gone. Maybe it rocks for a little while longer in the memory, but then after that, it's gone. It's just like eating ice cream. I was happy when I ate the ice cream, but when I gained the weight, I was not happy anymore.
Let me tell you something. You just gave a word in the sermon right there, brother. You definitely gave a word. I'm excited about what happens, about the deeper dive that we have next week. But I mean that happiness is fleeting. And I guess we need to understand it. I also want to deep dive because into this curse word. Apparently, it became a curse word without me knowing. It's called submission. I think that someone told me about it. A young lady told me about submission, and you would have thought that it was a curse word. My mind was the furthest thing about what, just even having that conversation with submission. I had broke it up into, for me personally, I break it up into like to two. And into one thing is just, there's the sub and there's a mission. There's the ultimate mission of the family and where it goes. And then that person will be in submission to that mission. It's just a mission. But then it comes on like, well, who's going to lead the mission? Well, I feel like the man should lead the mission. The man is the leader of the household. But ultimately, you know what I mean? The man is submitting to God because it's God's mission, because God had a purpose out here for you. So it's like the ultimate submission is this is God's plan, but you're gonna get into it. But I'm gonna write that down now. That you'll be talking about submission as well. I hate to say it online because, like I said, I heard this person came in and was talking about submission like it was a curse word, like it was the worst thing for a person to do. And I'm like, well, we are. I personally think you probably submitted already with a person when you laid down in bed with that person. You was already in submission. So for you to be upset with the terminology of the word, when ultimately you've already given that of yourself when you lay down with a person. That's a deep dive. But yeah, the brother got 23 years of marriage. It's based on something. Then you could bring Kathy on and she can tell us how great a husband you are as well. So
And she's a great wife. She's a great wife. Honestly, just bringing up Kathy, I admittedly stated this before her and before many other people. She absolutely taught me what love was. I mean, like I learned true love, by being married to my wife. And it wasn't because, you see me as the face of my family and everything. And, you've complimented me as well as others, about the way I'm able to give my understanding of what I've been through, my life and the experiences and the things that I've learned. And my wife doesn't give that same type of air to language or literature, but her actions were so loud. They were so loud in my ears, that it shined a light on something that I thought I understood, but I truly was able to gain understanding, by the actions that she applied to me and to my family and to my life. And I look at her and, I'm like, I told her before I left this morning, when they called me in, she was out there with the dog, like, baby, I love you. And then when she turned around and looked at me holding the dog, I said, no, baby, I love you. Anyway, I don't know if they understand what I'm saying right here. But anyway, I'm ready for it. Let's get into it, the deep dive on this word submission. And let's talk more about these 3 C's, because the relationship conversation has definitely gone from, the average, friendship or business relationship that will bring about success to successful relationship inside of our marriage. So until then, tell them to diss it.
So next week, the brother will be doing a deep dive into marriage. I can't wait to partake in it because I got questions. I got questions. But man, I think this was an excellent conversation. We got into the developing the relationship, actually, wanting to know the other person. Listen, people, get these some understanding, and then the investment, the investment that you're going to put into a relationship. We jumped into that, and I think ultimately, at the end, that leads to this successful relationship, and success may mean to some people, limiting your time with certain people if there's really no there's no addition happening for either one of you, or even if it's just one of you. If one person is just pouring in and the other person is just taking, it doesn't seek to pour in, because I think everybody, so I'll leave it. This is my last point. Everyone can be valuable to someone else. You just can. You know what I mean? You can find it because you are your own person. You have certain energies. Some people may not necessarily be open to it. Some people may not necessarily have the energy for it. Some people, but that's fine. You know what I mean? Everyone's not at the same level. But it's important, at least for me anyways, to at least give that chance to a person to at least develop that relationship and invest into it, and then we can see where we go from there on. But either way, don't count it as a loss. That's my point. Go ahead, brother. What's your any closing points?
Yeah, I just want to, because I love what you're saying. I want to reemphasize the inner outer circle, and we can go into it deeper next week. But perform the inner outer circle, especially when we start to get into these relationships that have to deal with the relationships that we wanted. Not as much as business relationships, but I can give some clarification on that. But especially like marriages and friendships and families, you got to invest in the inner outer circle, and you have to see what you can get out of that, because there's most case scenario, the individuals on both sides have not invested on the inner part of their circle, and because of that, the outer part of their circle is chaos.
Huge. I hope you all picked up that gem, man. Listen, so we will see you all next week. Thank you all for checking in. If you catch us on the replay, please remember to like, follow, share. Lots of gems in this one. And we'll continue doing it each and every week on Fridays at 6:30. Man, we appreciate you all for checking in.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all remember to check me out on TikTok, Motivatorpreneur. Check it out on TikTok, Motivatorpreneur. I got some new stuff coming out. This upcoming week, and then check me out on YouTube and as well, Joel Simmons. I might have to change up the YouTube name. There's a lot of Joel Simmons out there, so I'll keep you informed. And as well on LinkedIn, Joel Simmons. All right. Peace, y'all.
All right, peace, y'all.